Do help us to subscribe and hit that notification bell to enjoy more stories. Some people think age makes you quieter, softer, easier to push around. My daughter-in-law clearly thought so the day she leaned across my own dining table, eyes cold and voice dripping with condescension, and told me, "You need to stay in your lane." She said it in front of my son, as if daring me to react, as if my years of sacrifice, my help in raising him, my role in his life, meant absolutely nothing now that she wore a ring on her finger. What she didn't know was that I was the one who had funded that shiny white gold wedding band. Every flower, every twinkling light at their extravagant reception had been paid for by me, down to the very last glass of champagne. And she had just given me the perfect reason to take back what was mine. I'll admit it, I saw the red flags long before the wedding. From the moment my son introduced me to Emily, she looked at me like I was a rival, not a mother-in-law. She had this way of smiling with her mouth but never her eyes, of making compliments sound like subtle insults. Still, for my son's happiness, I bit my tongue. I paid for their engagement party, their honeymoon suite, and yes, a six-figure wedding fund I had saved for decades, money I had intended as a blessing, not a weapon. But that afternoon, as I set out a roast chicken for Sunday dinner, Emily decided she had had enough of me offering my opinion about their new home purchase. She set her wine glass down, leaned in, and said in that slow, deliberate tone, "Margaret, you need to stay in your lane." The silence afterward was thick. My son looked down at his plate, avoiding my eyes. My jaw clenched. I could feel my pulse in my ears. I smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach my heart, and said nothing. I served dessert as if nothing had happened. But in my mind, I had already made my decision. That wedding fund I'd given them? It wasn't gone. It was sitting in a separate account, waiting. And now, it was coming home to me. They thought they could humiliate me in my own house. They were about to learn that I built this lane. And I can take the whole damn road back. I didn't rush. Revenge is best served slowly, like a pot roast simmering until the meat falls apart in your hands. The Monday after that Sunday dinner, I opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and smiled at the little nest egg labeled wedding gift fund. I had transferred it months before the wedding, under my own name, with the agreement that it would be dispersed in parts for expenses. A safety net, in case my gut feeling about Emily ever proved right. It had. I called the bank and placed a freeze on the account. Then, I contacted every vendor who still had outstanding invoices from the wedding, the photographer, the cake designer, the videographer, and explained, in my most polite voice, that the payments would not be going through. "Oh," I added sweetly, "you might want to send the bills directly to Emily. She's in charge now." By Tuesday afternoon, the ripple effect had begun. Emily's phone was blowing up. I knew because my son called me, voice tight, asking, "Mom, did you pull the payments?" I sipped my tea. "Why, yes, darling. Emily told me to stay in my lane." I took that to mean she wanted full responsibility. I wouldn't want to overstep. The silence on the other end told me he understood, and that he knew I meant every word. But I wasn't finished. Oh no. I had one more card to play, something that would turn the very foundation of their picture-perfect marriage into quicksand. And for that, I needed to visit a certain lawyer who owed me a favor. The lawyer's office smelled faintly of leather and secrets. Mr. Alcott, an old friend of my late husband, greeted me with the kind of smile reserved for people who understand the art of subtle destruction. "You said you wanted to discuss the prenup," he asked, settling behind his mahogany desk. I slid the folder across to him, the same folder I'd kept locked away for over 2 years. "My son's," I said. "And Emily's." See, Emily thought she'd married into a cushioned life, my son's comfortable salary, my family's properties, and the quiet assumption that she'd eventually inherit when I passed. What she never knew was that my husband, God rest his soul, had built an ironclad prenup that made everything conditional. One of those conditions? Respect toward the family matriarch. And if that clause was violated, well, the marriage could be dissolved with no spousal claim to anything. Not a cent. Mr. Alcott flipped through the pages and let out a low whistle. She signed this without reading it, didn't she? Oh, she read it, I replied, but she didn't understand who she was really dealing with. By Friday, Emily received a polite letter from Mr. Alcott's office, a formal reminder of the conditions she had agreed to before marriage. The clause was highlighted in thick, yellow ink, with her signature right beneath it. My son called me again that night. His voice was shaking this time. "Mom, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything, dear," I said, letting the smile creep into my voice. "Emily just reminded me that I should stay in my lane. I'm simply driving right down it." The next morning, I heard Emily had moved back in with her parents temporarily. I knew it wasn't temporary. Not when I was only halfway done. Because revenge isn't just about payback, it's about making sure they remember exactly why they should have never crossed you. 3 weeks after Emily packed her things, the gossip started. Not from me, of course. I don't speak to anyone unless I'm sure the words will echo in the right ears. It began at the country club, where Emily had always wanted to network. I casually mentioned over coffee that she had left my son under such unfortunate circumstances and sighed heavily. I never said a word about the prenup or her outburst, but I didn't have to. In my circle, silence invites the juiciest speculation. Within a week, the whispers grew claws. By the second week, people started crossing the street rather than greet her. By the third week, she was the headline of her own little scandal, the daughter-in-law who insulted the very woman funding her wedding. But I wasn't finished. I contacted the wedding venue, the one she had bragged about booking 2 years in advance. The deposit? That was my money. And in my name. I had it transferred to fund the community scholarship program I started in my husband's memory. I made sure the local paper covered it, complete with my smiling photo holding the oversized check, on the very same date Emily had planned her bachelorette weekend. The call came that night. "You ruined everything." Emily's voice was raw, shaky, desperate. "No, dear," I said softly, "you ruined everything when you forgot who made all this possible." I hung up, poured myself a glass of Merlot, and sat by the fire. My son had already started filing for divorce. He didn't even ask me to stop. Perhaps, deep down, he knew I was right. And as I watched the flames dance, I realized revenge wasn't just sweet. It was delicious. It was 5 years later when I saw her again. A charity gala in the city, black tie, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing in the corner. My name had been on the event program for months, listed as primary sponsor. I was greeting guests when she appeared at the edge of the room. Emily. She had changed, thinner, paler, eyes darting around like she was looking for an exit. But her dress was still designer, her smile still practiced. She approached me as if the years between us could be smoothed over with a handshake. "Margaret," she breathed, "I've been meaning to talk to you. I've started my own event planning company. I was hoping you might consider." I didn't let her finish. I held up one hand, the same way a judge silences a noisy courtroom. "Emily," I said, voice low but sharp enough to cut, "I did consider it. And I decided my name will never be tied to yours, not socially, not professionally, not in any way. You burned that bridge. Now it's ash." Her painted smile wavered. Around us, people pretended not to notice, but I knew they were listening. My words would travel faster than champagne refills. "Have a lovely evening," I added, then turned away before she could see the satisfaction in my eyes. By the time dessert was served, she was gone. By the time the night ended, her name was already sinking further into oblivion. I didn't need to raise my voice or plot elaborate schemes anymore. My greatest revenge was simpler than that. I had become untouchable. And she had to live knowing she once had the world at her fingertips, and lost it all because she told the wrong woman to stay in her lane.